But speaking of some teams that maybe used to be in the group of five, how about a team that is still in the group of five that frankly we gotta have a tougher conversation about? Remember when Air Force was ranked in the top 25, and a lot of people were talking about how, Air Force, they should be ranked by the college football playoff. They should have the opportunity to compete for a New Year's Six bowl, depending on what happens. Well, where are those people now? Where are they? And also, did Army break the Air Force program? Because you would think after Air Force lost that the way that they did, not only being a close to 20-point favorite to Army, they end up losing badly in that game. They lose by 20 to the Army Academy. You would think Air Force would be refocused as, listen, even though they ended up losing the game, they still have all of their goals in front of them, but they go back at it. They go on the road to take on Hawaii. And Hawaii has had it rough this year. They did come in 3-7. They've only won one game in the Mountain West Conference, a solid Mountain West Conference, but not a really not a good year for Hawaii, to say the least. Hawaii wins this game. And not only does Hawaii end up winning this game, they win this game by double digits. In another game in which Air Force was heavily favored. The final betting line going into this 11 p.m. Eastern kickoff was 22.5. And it was down horrendous. It was not good at all. Braden Steiger, we talked about Braden Steiger this year. He's been, an up and down quarterback, but he's had his good moments. We've talked about those moments when we saw them back in the beginning of the season, back in September, when he was almost able to pull an upset off against Vanderbilt, actually exposed a very pedestrian Vanderbilt secondary. Braden Steiger did his thing. He throws 2 touchdown passes, both of which went to Palafe Ashwak. He's a freshman wide receiver. This is the first year this guy has seen the field, and Ashlock, he is going to be a very good piece moving forward for Hawaii. I do want to point that out. If he does enter the transfer portal, I'm sure this will be a guy that will have some Power 5 interest moving forward. The guy has 720 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns. This is a very good receiver that Hawaii is very fortunate to have and able to recruit out of Ushwin, Texas. And while he didn't have the most receiving yards in this game, he only ended up with 6-7 yards. He did it off of 12 catches. He had multiple touchdowns. Hawaii loves to give this guy the ball, and boy, did he ended up making some plays. Plus, Braden Steiger did end up running in another touchdown as well. So we expected this. Hawaii is a team that loves to pass the ball. They're more of an air raid type of offense. I remember watching Hawaii first couple of weeks of the season, since we did have a couple of parlays that involved the Rainbow Warriors in those games against Vanderbilt. And there's someone else that they played in the very beginning of the season, but it's escaping me at the moment. We're going to do a quick double check. Stanford was they played Stanford. That was the game. But what's going on with Air Force right now? What is happening with this Air Force team? They're just not getting the same. I don't know if it's one of those things if Air Force had an injury problem or what happened. But man, did this was a shocker. Zach Larrier, I don't think played in this game at all. So maybe that has a lot to do with it because they just don't have that same offensive zip. I'm not saying that they were balanced by anything. Air Force was never a team that was quote unquote a balanced team. Air Force is a military academy, and the rule of military academies are we like to go ahead and do a triple option offense, which is what we do. So that might be a big thing to do with it. Because their quarterbacks in this game for Air Force went 3 for 9, did have 114 yards. So when they did actually complete the pass, they actually went for explosive plays. Problem was, Air Force completed as many passes to the Hawaii secondary as they did to their own receivers. I'm going to let you guys right now. Hawaii is not what you would call a quote unquote elite defense. They're 4-7 for a reason. That's a problem. That's actually a really big problem, to be honest with you. So turnovers, again, like in that Army game, was a massive factor in this one. When you turn the ball over that many times, that's not good. And not only that, they also ended up turning the ball over on the ground as well. A fumble loss. So 4 total turnovers for Air Force. That was really what the biggest factor was, because you look at all these other stats across the board, you would think that Air Force would at least be a lot closer in this particular game. Total yards, for example, Air Force actually outgained Hawaii 315 to 297. So Air Force won there. Hawaii and Air Force had roughly the same number of first downs. Hawaii actually won the time possession barely. It's like 30 and a half minutes for Hawaii to Air Force's 29 and a half. And that's really the root of the problem there as well. When you're a triple option team and you're throwing it 9 times compared to 47 times on the ground, there is no excuse for you to lose the time possession. So that's kind of another thing as well. It's not as big of a deal, but that is a factor that you would have never expected. If I told you at the beginning of the season, hey, Hawaii is going to have more time with the ball than Air Force when they match up in November, you would have called me crazy. And if there was a prop line, you would have told me, well, if you believe that so much, why don't you go bet on it? And I wouldn't, because I wouldn't have saw that either. I would not have made a bet that Air Force would have the ball less than Hawaii. Wouldn't do it. But they did eventually find a way to score in the third quarter. Their first touchdown came on a 20-play drive that took 12 minutes. And it didn't even lead into a touchdown. It led to a field goal. That was with 6:20 remaining in the first half. So they had a drive that lasted nearly the entire quarter, only to lead to a field goal. I mean, when you have a drive that long, you got to be able to score. But that was really the biggest thing. The turnovers were absolutely killer. Absolutely killer for Air Force. But for Air Force, at least they still have the opportunity to compete for a Mountain West championship. Now, they do lose that leeway that they've had built up over the course of the season. That's gone. Air Force, if they want to go to the Mountain West championship, don't forget about hosting. Forget about hosting for a split second. They got to win at least one of these next 2 games. While they're still on top, the game that they have next week is going to be huge. It's going to be absolutely huge. Air Force has UNLV at home. They are tied with UNLV on top of the Mountain West. Whoever wins that game will likely get to host the Mountain West Championship, and that's a big advantage because for many Group of 5 conferences, and I'm pretty sure this is the case as well with the Mountain West, whoever has the best conference record gets to host at their home stadium. So UNLV having it at their house instead of having to travel somewhere else, that's a big deal, especially because UNLV plays in Allegiant. That's essentially a dome. And I bet you UNLV would rather play in that kind of environment than go to Colorado Springs, Colorado, where it's a lot colder, especially in the wintertime when this conference championship game would be happening in December in Colorado. Just letting that be known. And then Air Force also has Boise State. Boise State on the road, and Boise State, another team that is in the mix. They're tied. Boise State is tied for second. They're actually still trying to get bowl eligibility. Don't know if they'll actually make that happen or not, but Boise State is still right in there in that picture. So Air Force has a couple of critical games that are going to be happening. And man, I don't know what's going on with Zach Lear, but I really do hope that they get him back. Because if they don't, oh, baby, it's going to be a problem. Going to be a real problem because he is a huge vocal point for their offense. And then for Hawaii as well, for the Rainbow Warriors. Rainbow Warriors, so they can't be bowl eligible even though they could hypothetically still win 6 games because here's the thing with Hawaii. Hawaii has 13 games on their schedule. And a big reason why is because, they have the travel exceptions to help offset travel costs, traveling on and off the island. It takes a lot to get a football team multiple hours across an ocean. It's a problem. They still have 2 more games at Mountain West Conference play. They can't be bowl eligible, but they can finish the season strong. They got Wyoming on the road, and then they have Colorado State at home. 2 games that could be winnable games for the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. So they can finish 6-7. And while that won't initially get them the bowl eligibility, unless there's not enough 6-6 teams that are out there, it certainly helps build momentum into the next season. But even though Air Force shot themselves in the foot multiple times, losing the turnover battle 4-0, Hawaii still had to come out and make plays. And Hawaii did that. So hats off to the Rainbow Warriors. Huge upset. Big win at Clarence T.C. Ching Athletics Complex. And all of a sudden, this Mountain West gets very interesting in terms of who those 2 teams would ultimately end up being that will compete for the Mountain West Championship.